Welcome back to another episode of Cold Case Friday. Tonight, I'm diving deep into a case that has left me completely perplexed. Honestly, I've been thinking about it nonstop, trying to wrap my head around all the intricate details and swirling theories. Truly one of the most baffling and haunting stories I've ever come across. This case brings to mind the infamous Michael and Kathleen Peterson incident, the one involving the mysterious staircase. For those who might not be familiar, Michael Peterson was accused of murdering his wife Kathleen after she was found dead at the bottom of a staircase in their home. The case was filled with twists and turns, including theories about accidental falls, an owl attack, and potential foul play. The unanswered questions, the conflicting evidence, it all adds up to a real head-scratcher. But today's story also centers around a staircase, leaving us questioning whether it was a tragic accident or something far more sinister took place. It's incredibly frustrating because I find myself about 75% leaning one way and 25% the other. It's hard to reach a definitive conclusion when the evidence seems to point in multiple directions. I can only imagine how agonizing this must be for the family involved, not having clear answers, being torn between different possibilities. The emotional toll must be intense. The circumstances surrounding this case are truly bizarre and heart-wrenching. For those tuning in, today I'm discussing the mysterious death of a young woman named Amanda Antoni from Canada, whose untimely passing has left both investigators and loved ones searching for answers. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of coverage on this case, except for a recent episode of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. Given the perplexing and tragic details of her death, it's surprising that it hasn't gained more attention. Theories range from a freak accident to possible foul play, but none seem to fully make sense. So let's dive in and learn more about Amanda, her life, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding her death. Amanda was born on June 5, 1984 in Alberta, Canada. From the very beginning, life presented challenges for her. She was placed in the foster care system at just 2 months old. Fortunately, fate smiled upon her when a loving couple named Linda and Leslie welcomed her into their home in the small town of Carstairs, north of Calgary. Linda and Leslie were nurturing parents with 2 sons of their own, Alan and Daryl. From the moment they met Amanda, they felt a deep connection. Alan, who was 13 years older, recalled how she immediately became the cherished baby of the family. He would often carry her around and play with her and took on a protective big brother role. They were so captivated by Amanda's bright blue eyes and infectious smile that 14 months after fostering her, they decided to legally adopt her. Linda often reminisced, saying she had the most beautiful blue eyes and had stolen our hearts from day one. The adoption made the family feel complete. Growing up in Carstairs, a tight-knit community with a population of just over 4,000, Amanda enjoyed the simplicity and warmth of small-town life. She was known for her vivacious spirit and infectious laughter. Her playful nature often led to harmless pranks on her brothers, keeping the household lively and full of joy. Amanda was incredibly close to her brothers, who doted on her endlessly. Alan would often talk about how she'd fall asleep on his chest while they were watching cartoons together. Daryl remembered her as a playful prankster who kept the family on their toes with her jokes and surprises. Family gatherings were always filled with laughter, largely due to Amanda's spirited personality. From a young age, Amanda had a profound love for animals. She was drawn to every stray or injured creature she encountered. Whether it was rescuing a bird with a broken wing or bringing home a stray cat, she was always eager to help. If it were up to her, she would have transformed their home into a veritable zoo. The compassion for animals stayed with her throughout her life, influencing many of her decisions and hobbies. Academically, Amanda was a bright student. She excelled in her classes and was particularly interested in art and biology. Her creative side shone through in her drawings and paintings, many of which featured animals and nature scenes. Teachers often praised her for her kindness towards other students and her willingness to help those in need. In high school, she participated in various extracurricular activities, including the art club and volunteering at the local animal shelter. Her involvement in the community made her well known and loved by many. She had a natural ability to connect with people, making friends easily and maintaining those relationships over the years. Her early years in Carstairs were filled with warmth, love, and the simple joys of small-town living. She was known in the community for her kind heart, volunteering at local shelters, and participating in community events. Little did anyone know that her life would later be overshadowed by such a tragic and mysterious event. As Amanda entered her late teens and early 20s, she began to blossom into a confident and independent woman. After graduating high school, she decided to pursue a career in cleaning services. Leveraging her meticulous nature and strong work ethic, she started her own business, Simply Spotless, which quickly gained a reputation for excellence in the community. Around this time, through mutual friends, Amanda met a man named Lee. Lee was a few years older, charismatic, and had a bit of an adventurous streak. He was known for his quick wit and charming demeanor. The two quickly hit it off, bonding over shared interests in music and outdoor activities like hiking and camping. Their connection was instantaneous. Friends and family recalled how Amanda's eyes would light up whenever she talked about Lee. They began dating, and at just 20 years old, Amanda made the significant decision to move in with him. Together, they purchased a modest home in the Castle Ridge neighborhood of Calgary, which was about 41 miles away from her family in Carstairs. Castle Ridge, while offering affordable housing options, was known for having a higher crime rate than other parts of Calgary. The neighborhood had its share of challenges, frequent reports of violent incidents, occasional disturbances, and petty crimes like trespassing and theft. Neighbors would often find people rummaging through their garbage bins for bottles and cans to recycle for cash. Despite these issues, Amanda and Lee were determined to make the best of their new home. They took pride in setting up their place, adding personal touches like painting the walls in bright colors and planting a small garden in the backyard. They wanted to create a sanctuary amid the chaos outside. Their 3-story house had an interesting layout. The living room and dining area on the main floor opened directly to the basement stairs without a door separating them. Just a set of 4 laminated wood steps led to a landing with a small shelf which held a decorative ceramic piggy bank. From there, carpeted stairs led down to an unfinished basement which they used primarily for storage and laundry. Amanda was always creeped out by the basement. She avoided going down there unless absolutely necessary, like when she needed to do the laundry. The unfinished, dimly lit space with its concrete floors and exposed pipes gave her an uneasy feeling. Her family and friends found this relatable, often joking about basements being inherently spooky. On a brighter note, moving in together allowed Amanda to fulfill her dream of having pets. They welcomed a lovable black lab named Ruby, who was energetic and affectionate. Ruby quickly became an integral part of their lives, accompanying them on walks and outings. They also adopted 2 adorable cats, Gizmo and Meatball, who added to the warmth of their home. Amanda adored them, and they brought immense joy to her life. Family members noticed how much Amanda seemed to thrive in her relationship with Lee. They shared many happy moments, like hosting dinner parties, going on weekend trips, and enjoying quiet evenings at home. However, like any couple, they faced challenges. Lee had what some described as a wild side. He enjoyed socializing, sometimes to excess, and struggled to hold down a steady job. His employment history was sporadic, consisting of short-term positions in construction and retail. This sometimes put a strain on their finances, with Amanda's income from Simply Spotless being the primary source of stability. Friends noted that Amanda would sometimes vent her frustrations about Lee's lack of financial contribution and his reluctance to settle into a career path. Despite these issues, they remained committed to their relationship, believing that with time and encouragement, he would find his footing. Their love was genuine, but the stress of financial instability and differing lifestyles did create friction. Amanda's family was supportive, but kept a watchful eye, wanting the best for her. They hoped that the couple could work through their challenges and build a stable future together. In 2010, Amanda faced the heartbreaking loss of her adoptive father, Leslie. His passing deeply affected her, as she had been incredibly close to him. Leslie had always been a pillar of strength and guidance in her life. His death brought the family even closer. With Amanda frequently making the drive back to Carstairs to spend quality time with her mother Linda and her brothers Alan and Daryl. They supported each other through their grief, sharing memories and leaning on one another. Around the same time, Lee was grappling with challenges within his own family. His sister, whose name hasn't been publicly disclosed, was battling a severe addiction. Her struggles had escalated over the years, affecting her ability to care for her young daughter. Concerned for their niece's well-being, Lee and Amanda stepped in to provide care and stability for the child. Their involvement escalated to the point where they felt it necessary to contact Child Protective Services. This decision was not made lightly. They hoped that intervention would prompt Lee's sister to seek help and provide a safer environment for her daughter. Unfortunately, the outcome was not as they had hoped. Lee's sister was furious about the intervention, believing that her family had betrayed her. She began making harassing phone calls to Amanda and Lee, sometimes up to 20 times a day. The content of these calls grew increasingly hostile, with explicit threats directed at Amanda. She would demand, "Where's my daughter?" and accuse them of tearing her family apart. On several occasions, she threatened physical harm, saying things like, "You'll pay for this, and you won't see what's coming." The situation took a significant toll on Amanda's sense of safety and well-being. She confided in friends and family that she feared for her life, especially given the volatile nature of Lee's sister. Amanda took precautions, such as changing her daily routines, being more vigilant about locking doors and windows, and considering security measures for their home. Despite the stress, Amanda remained supportive of Lee, understanding that he was also struggling with the family turmoil. They hoped that his sister would eventually seek help and that the family could heal. However, the tension added strain to the relationship, with both of them feeling the weight of their respective family issues. In 2014, another blow struck. Lee's father passed away after a battle with a chronic illness. The compounded grief and family turmoil added layers of stress to their lives. Lee became more withdrawn, grappling with his loss and the unresolved issues with his sister. A year later, in October 2015, Amanda and Lee planned a trip to his mother's home in Saskatchewan to help settle his father's estate. This trip was significant, not just for estate matters, but also as an opportunity for them to reconnect and perhaps alleviate some of the ongoing stress. They looked forward to spending time with Lee's mother and hoped the change of scenery would be beneficial. Little did they know, this journey would precede a tragic turn of events and change their lives forever. On Friday, October 23, 2015, the day they were supposed to embark on their trip, Amanda woke up with a severe migraine. Those close to her knew that while she didn't suffer from migraines, when she did, they were debilitating. Migraines can be utterly incapacitating, intense headaches accompanied by nausea, sensitivity to light, and sometimes visual disturbances like aura. Amanda's migraines often left her bedridden for days. She had a regimen for managing them, which included resting in a dark, quiet room, using cold compresses, and taking her usual remedies. She preferred natural treatments when possible, so she used herbal remedies, including cannabis, to manage her symptoms. She also took over-the-counter painkillers like ibuprofen. Realizing she wasn't in any condition to travel, Amanda urged Lee to make the trip without her. She didn't want her illness to hold him back from supporting his mother during a difficult time. This was a notable decision because since their marriage, they hadn't spent a night apart. Lee was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed, planning to keep in constant contact. Lee left their home in Castle Ridge around 11 a.m., promising to check in regularly. True to his word, the couple stayed in communication through calls and text messages. They discussed how she was feeling, updates on his drive, and plans for the week ahead. Lee arrived at his mother's house in the early evening, where they began sorting through his father's belongings. On Saturday, October 24th, Lee called Amanda around 7:06 p.m. During the call, it sounded like she was moving through the house. Amanda mentioned that her migraine had improved somewhat and she had managed to eat a light meal. She was in good spirits, talking about possibly visiting her brothers the next day. During their conversation, Ruby, their black lab, started barking loudly in the background. Amanda was heard telling Ruby to quiet down, saying, "Ruby, hush, what's gotten into you?" Suddenly, Lee heard Ruby yelp, a sharp sound that indicated the dog might have been hurt or startled, followed by a crashing noise. The sound was abrupt and alarming. Then abruptly, the call went silent. Concerned, Lee checked his phone and realized the call had disconnected. It was 7:10 p.m. He tried calling back immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. He thought perhaps her phone battery had died, which had happened before, or that she might have accidentally dropped the phone, causing it to malfunction. Lee sent her a text message saying, "Hey, call me back when you can. Hope everything is okay." He reasoned that if her migraine had returned, she might be resting and didn't want to be disturbed. On Sunday, October 25th, he noticed that she hadn't replied, which was a bit unusual, but not entirely out of character. If she was feeling unwell, assuming she might be spending time with her brothers, as she often did on Sundays, Lee didn't press the issue. He was also preoccupied with helping his mother and dealing with the emotional task of sorting through his father's estate. Some people might find his reaction to be a bit nonchalant, especially given the unusual sounds he heard before the call dropped. However, it's important to consider that everyone reacts differently in situations. Without any prior incidents, he might not have imagined anything was seriously wrong. Additionally, long-distance communication glitches and drop calls are not uncommon, especially in areas with spotty reception. On Monday morning, Lee felt a growing sense of unease. Amanda still hadn't responded to his messages or calls. Deciding not to ignore his instincts, he told his mother that he was heading back home earlier than planned, hoping to surprise Amanda and make sure everything was all right. Lee left his mother's house around 8:30 a.m. on that Monday, eager to return to Calgary. The drive was approximately 6.5 hours. He only stopped once for gas, not wanting to delay his arrival. Along the way, he tried calling Amanda again, but received no answer. Pulled in the driveway in the early afternoon, this familiar sight of their home brought a mix of relief and anxiety. As he entered the house, Ruby greeted him enthusiastically at the door, which was typical behavior for their affectionate dog. However, he immediately noticed that something was off. First, he saw that Ruby had an accident on the top there near the basement, something she rarely did as she was well trained. This was concerning, suggesting that she hadn't been let out for some time. Concerned, he led her out through the back door to the yard. It's important to note that he couldn't recall whether the back door was locked when he arrived, which could be a crucial detail in understanding what had happened. As he moved further into the house, he spotted a dining room chair that had been tipped over in the dining area. Nearby, he found Amanda's cell phone on the floor. It appeared to be broken. The screen was cracked, and the casing was damaged. The phone and chair were about 10 feet away from the opening to the basement. His initial thought was that perhaps the pets had caused some mischief while he was away. Maybe Ruby had knocked over the chair and damaged the phone in the process. Assuming Amanda might be resting upstairs due to her migraine, he headed to their bedroom to check on her. To his surprise and growing alarm, it wasn't there. Instead, he found their two cats, Gizmo and Meatball, lounging quietly on the bed. Feeling a growing sense of unease, he called out her name. "Amanda, are you here?" But received no response. He checked the bathrooms, the guest room, and even peeked outside to see if the car was there. It was parked in the driveway. Realizing the only place left to check was the basement, one place Amanda disliked and rarely visited. Lee felt a knot form in his stomach. As he approached the stairs leading down, he noticed two full laundry bins sitting on a landing, which was something unusual. Amanda typically kept up with the laundry and wouldn't leave bins blocking the stairs. Unbeknownst to him at that moment, the piggy bank that usually sat on the small shelf by the landing had its face broken off. A piece of ceramic was stuck in the carpeted stairs. This detail would later become significant in piecing together the events. As he descended the stairs and reached the bottom, he was met with a horrific sight. Amanda was lying face down in a vast pool of blood that nearly covered the entire basement floor. Blood splatter adorned the walls, creating a gruesome scene. Her clothing was soaked through and her hair was matted with blood. Her slippers were near the foot of the staircase and her pants were pulled down past her hips, exposing her underwear. This unsettling detail would later raise questions about the possibility of foul play. Overcome with shock and terror, Lee stumbled back up the stairs, his mind reeling. He grabbed his phone and frantically dialed 911, struggling to articulate what he had found. When the operator asked if he could check to see if Amanda was still alive, he hesitated, paralyzed by fear and grief. Summoning his courage, he returned to the basement to check her pulse. Kneeling beside her, he reached out with a trembling hand and touched her neck. He was cold to the touch, and there were no signs of life. Tears streamed down his face as he realized she was gone. Devastated, he awaited the arrival of emergency services, his mind racing with questions about what could have happened. He couldn't fathom how a seemingly ordinary day had turned into a nightmare. Responding Officer Trent arrived within minutes, along with paramedics and additional police units. The scene that they encountered was both gruesome and perplexing. The sheer amount of blood suggested a violent incident. but there were puzzling elements that didn't immediately align with a straightforward narrative. Bloodstain pattern analyst named Jody was called in due to the complexity of the scene. With over a decade of experience, she was known for her meticulous attention to detail and ability to interpret blood evidence to reconstruct events. Jody later described it as one of the most challenging cases of her career. The basement floor was covered in blood with various patterns indicating different types of movement. There were large pools of blood near Amanda's body, suggesting she had been stationary in those areas for some time. Pieces of the broken piggy bank were found embedded in her skull, suggesting it may have been involved in her injuries. The piggy bank itself was still on a shelf near the landing, with dust settled on top, indicating it hadn't been moved recently. Puzzling detail given that fragments were found with her. Blood spatter on the walls was initially thought to be indicative of a violent attack involving a weapon. However, upon closer examination, Jody theorized that the spatter patterns were consistent with a cast-off from something moving their head rapidly. This could occur if Amanda had been shaking her head, possibly trying to clear blood from her eyes, a heartbreaking possibility. Investigators also found 12 barefoot impressions in the blood, primarily around where Amanda's body was located, but also near a series of mirrors along the right wall and at the base of the stairs. Footprints were matched to Amanda's feet, indicating that she had been moving around the basement barefoot. Her slippers being left near the staircase suggested she had removed them at some point. Perhaps she didn't, though, to gain better traction on the blood-slicked floor, or maybe in a state of disorientation. The presence of the mirrors added another air of mystery. It's possible Amanda was looking into them to assess her injuries, or due to confusion and shock, she might have perceived the mirrors as another way out. Notably, there was no blood traces on the staircase itself, raising questions about why she hadn't attempted to go back upstairs to seek help. Additionally, there were no other footprints or shoe impressions in the blood, and no paw prints from Ruby or the cats. Wipe marks in the blood suggested that someone, or possibly Amanda herself, had attempted to wipe away or interact with the blood on the floor. However, there was no evidence of another person's involvement based on DNA or fingerprint analysis. Upstairs, the disarray added to the puzzle. The broken phone and the tipped-over chair could indicate a struggle. However, it's also possible that the phone was dropped and damaged during an accidental fall, and the chair could have been knocked over by Ruby in distress. The investigation team began collecting all available evidence, including swabs for DNA, fingerprints, and analyzing the patterns of blood spatter and footprints. They also interviewed neighbors to see if anyone had seen or heard anything. Given the disturbing evidence, investigators initially considered the possible foul play. The idea of an intruder seemed plausible, especially considering the neighborhood's crime rate and previous incidents of trespassing in their backyard. They explored whether someone could have entered the house through an unlocked door or possibly had a key. The fact that Lee couldn't recall if the back door was locked added to this uncertainty. Amanda's injuries were severe. The autopsy revealed that her right orbital bone was fractured, indicating significant blunt force trauma to the area around her eye. She also had significant bruising on her elbows and knees, suggesting she had fallen or been involved in a struggle. However, there were no defensive wounds on her hands or arms, which might be expected if she had fought off an attacker. Her fingernails did not contain any foreign DNA, and there were no signs of a struggle elsewhere in the house. Investigators collected DNA samples from the blood at the scene, hoping to find traces of another person. They also conducted a thorough search for any signs of forced entry, such as broken locks, pry marks, or damaged windows. The lack of additional DNA or fingerprints complicated the theory of an intruder. If someone hadn't been in the house, they would have had to meticulously avoid leaving any traces, a level of precision uncommon in spontaneous criminal acts. Naturally, Lee became a person of interest. It's standard procedure to look closely at spouses or partners in such cases. Amanda's brother Daryl even expressed suspicions, citing financial strains and previous tensions in the relationship. However, Lee's alibi was solid. Case verified his whereabouts through gas station surveillance footage, timestamps from his journey, and corroboration from his mother and other family members. There was no feasible way he could have been at the house during the time of Amanda's death. Investigators explored other possibilities, a break-in, a stalker, or perhaps someone connected to Lee's sister, given her previous threats against Amanda. They interviewed Lee's sister, who denied any involvement and had an alibi supported by witnesses and phone records. There was no evidence to support these theories. No valuables were missing from the home, and there were no eyewitnesses or credible leads pointing to an external perpetrator. Community was urged to come forward with any information. Flyers were distributed, and local news outlets covered the story, highlighting the unusual circumstances of Amanda's death. Despite these efforts, no substantial tips emerged. The case was growing colder by the day. As the homicide theory began to lose traction due to lack of evidence, investigators started considering the possibility of a tragic accident. On December 7, 2015, the autopsy and forensic test results provided new insights that shifted the focus of the medical examiner concluded that Amanda died from inguination. Apologies for butchering that. Pretty much severe blood loss following blunt force trauma to her head. Interestingly, there was no significant trauma to her brain, which meant she might not have lost consciousness immediately. Fracture to her orbital bone was severe, but not necessarily fatal in and of itself. Toxicology reports indicated that Amanda had cannabis in her system, consistent with her migraine treatment. Additionally, over-the-counter painkillers like ibuprofen were present, which can have blood-thinning effects. Biomechanics engineer was brought in to reconstruct possible scenarios. One theory proposed that while on the phone with Lee, Amanda might have been moving through the dining area when Ruby became agitated. Perhaps Ruby was reacting to something outside, or was simply energetic. If Amanda had tripped over Ruby near the opening to the basement of the stairs, she could have fallen down the unguarded steps. Notably, there was no railing or protective barrier at the top of the stairs, a safety hazard that increased the risk of such an accident. The initial impact could have caused her to hit her head on the piggy bank on the shelf, breaking it and causing the facial fraction. That would explain why fragments of the piggy bank were embedded in her skull, if the main body of the piggy bank remained on the shelf. Continuing her fall, she might have tumbled down the remaining stairs, landing hard on the concrete floor of the unfinished basement. The head wound would have bled profusely, especially if compounded by blood-thinning medications. She was disoriented or in shock. Due to blood loss, she might not have been able to seek help or think clearly. Shock can lead to confusion, dizziness, and impaired motor function. It's possible she removed her slippers to gain better traction on the slick floor, or simply due to disorientation. The barefoot impressions and swipe marks could be explained by her moving around in a state of confusion, possibly trying to find a way out or make sense of her surroundings. The lack of blood on the stairs suggests she didn't attempt to get back up. Perhaps the effort seemed insurmountable, or she was physically incapable of climbing the stairs due to her injuries and blood loss. While this theory might seem far-fetched to some, it aligns with the physical evidence, or lack thereof, regarding the presence of another person. It also explains why there are no defensive wounds, signs of a struggle elsewhere in the house, or any missing items. Despite the accident theory providing some plausible explanations, many, including Amanda's family and the bloodstain analyst Jody, remained skeptical. Jody stated emphatically that she didn't believe this was an accident, citing inconsistencies in the blood patterns and the scene layout. The location of Amanda's broken phone and the tipped-over chair upstairs added to the doubts. She had fallen down the stairs, but her phone ended up broken 10 feet away from the stairwell. Was there a struggle that started elsewhere? Could the phone have been damaged in an initial fall, or was it unrelated? Additionally, her brothers were adamant that she would have done everything in her power to get back upstairs and seek help, regardless of her condition. They believe she was strong-willed and resourceful, unlikely to succumb without fighting to survive. The peculiar detail of her pants being pulled down also raises questions. Some indicate a potential sexual assault. However, the autopsy found no evidence of sexual assault or defensive injuries that might be associated with such an attack. Some experts suggested that in cases of hypovolemic shock, individuals may experience a sensation of overheating, leading them to remove clothing in an attempt to cool down. This could explain why her pants were partially removed. Lee and others questioned why Ruby didn't go downstairs to be with Amanda. Dogs are known to stay close to their owners, especially in distress. Could something have prevented the dog from following her? Perhaps Ruby was scared by the commotion or hesitant to navigate the blood-soaked area. Ultimately, without concrete evidence pointing to foul play, the case remains classified as an undetermined death. Lack of definitive answers has left the family in limbo, grappling with unresolved grief and countless what-ifs. Amanda's mother, Linda, expressed her anguish, saying, "I just want to know what happened to my daughter. She deserves so much more than this uncertainty." Amanda was laid to rest near her father in Carstairs, her hometown. The funeral was attended by family, friends, and community members who remembered her as a kind-hearted, vibrant young woman whose life was cut tragically short. The loss left a profound void in the lives of those who knew and loved her. Lee expressed deep sorrow, stating, quote, "It changes a person, especially losing the love of your life. Not a day goes by that I don't think about her and wonder if there's something I missed." Her brother Daryl feels a persistent urge to seek the truth. He believes that Amanda is guiding him, urging him not to give up until they can uncover what really happened. Family continues to hold on to hope that new information will come to light, whether through advancements in forensic technology or someone coming forward with crucial information. It's incredibly challenging to accept the accident theory when so many questions remain unanswered. The unusual circumstances, the inconsistencies, and the sheer tragedy of it all make it a haunting mystery that lingers in the minds of everyone involved. Statistically, fatal accidents from falling downstairs are relatively rare, especially for someone in the prime of their life. According to data, falls are a leading cause of injury, but deaths typically occur in older adults or those with pre-existing health conditions. Yet, in the absence of evidence pointing to foul play, we have to consider all possibilities. It's a stark reminder of how fragile life can be and how quickly circumstances can change. Accidents can and do happen in the most unexpected ways. And I encourage anyone who might have information related to Amanda's death to come forward. Even the smallest detail could be the key to unlocking the truth, providing closure for her family. Anonymous tips can be submitted to the local police department, which continues to keep the case open, albeit inactive. My heart goes out to Amanda's loved ones. I'll continue to follow this case, hoping that someday the full story will emerge, bringing peace to those left behind. Stories like these that highlight the importance of community support and the relentless pursuit of truth. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Give me your best theory of what happened. Do you think it was foul play or do you think it was an accident? Let me know. Of course, give it a thumbs up if you like your video. Hit the subscribe button down below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/DCNS. Yet, you can always catch us on all major podcast platforms, including Good Pods. Check us out today. So much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.